The matrix is a two-dimensional data structure, and just like the vector, it can contain only one mode of data, for example, numeric, character, logical, or complex, but no mixture of these. And if you want to define a matrix, you use the command matrix. And the first argument is the data that you want to store in the matrix, in this case numbers 1 to 6. This of course forms a vector containing numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The second argument is the number of rows you want in your matrix, and the third one is the number of columns. And if you look at X, you get this in return. As you can see, you get a matrix with 2 rows and 3 columns, and this is the way R tells you that this is the first row and no particular column, that is all columns. And this refers to the second row, all columns. And here you can see the first column and not any particular row. And one thing you should notice here is that the numbers have been filled column by column, because R starts with the rows, so to say. You start with the first row, then the second row, and when there are no more rows, it goes to the second column and fills this way. And that might be a bit counterintuitive. And if you want R to fill it the other way around, like this, like you write, then you have to add the argument by row and make that true. That's false as a default. You could also give the columns and rows names in R, but it's sort of difficult. You do it like this using the argument dim names, and you have to give the names in a list, and we'll get back to lists, but you write list, and then the list has 2 objects in it. The first one is a vector created by the C command, and it contains the row names, and the second part of the list is a vector containing the column names. And as you can see, the X now looks like this, and it has the names of the columns here instead of the numbers, and it has the names of the rows here. When you subscript matrices, then you have to tell R both which row and which column you're interested in. So if you want, for example, the first row, the second column, you write X bracket 1, 2, and then you get the 3 in return. And that is because the number 3 here is stored at the first row, the second column. And as you see, R starts with the rows and then the columns. It's always like that. If you have given the rows and columns names, you could of course use them instead, like this, R1 and C2, and then you get to 3. You have to put the citation marks around them, because if you don't, then R will interpret this as an object and start looking for an object called R1, and probably there is no such object, and you'll get an error message in return. If you skip the row part and just type X nothing, 2, then you're telling R that you're interested in all the rows and the second column, and R returns this 3 and 4, which is the first and second row, all rows of the second column. And it also tells you R1, R2 here to indicate what row they belong to, since you have given the rows names. And of course this works the opposite way as well. If you give a particular row and no particular column, you will get the entire row.